Hey everyone. Well, today is January the 9th, 2017. Last week I only got to do one video. I was so busy, so this week I'm going to make up for it because I have quite a few issues I want to deal with. The very first issue, I'm going to get right to it. Of course, we're all watching this campaign that's being carried out to demonize Vladimir Putin and Russia and to blame them for, involving themselves in our election, hacking into the DNC, hacking into everyone, it appears. There's two things going on here. One is not to be taken too seriously, and the other is to be taken very seriously. The very first thing I'll deal with is the thing that shouldn't be taken too seriously, and that is the political part of what's happening here. The Democrats are still in a state of confusion. They still really don't understand what happened to them and why they lost the election. They're grasping at anything, and that's why they're jumping on the bandwagon with this Putin and Russia hacking, and they're trying to give the impression to people that Donald Trump won because Russia hacked the election. Not too many people believe that. I know there's some Hillary bots out there that probably do believe that, but most people I talk to, even some of my Democrat friends, they're just not buying it. So this part of it is really just politics. It's the Democrats and quite a few Republicans as well, but they're buying into it for a different reason. For the Democrats, it's just political. It's just politics. It's about their power. They're very nervous. They don't know exactly what happened to them. They know they lost a couple of blue states, and they're very concerned with their with the prognosis for the future of their party and their personal power. So what's going to happen here is that Trump is going to be inaugurated on the 20th, and he's going to probably begin draining the swamp. He's going to clean house in a lot of these government agencies, and he's going to have a hell of a fight on his hands. But the Democrats really don't have the votes to stop a whole lot. They can throw a lot of barriers up, they can make a lot of noise, blow a lot of smoke around, but there's not really a whole lot they can do. And they're trying to still figure out their situation and to figure out what happened to them. So for the politics of this issue that the Democrats are playing, it's really just them grasping at anything they possibly can to pacify themselves until they can figure out what to do about their situation, which is not a good one. Now let's get to the serious part of this. What's going on here? We have to go back to the 1990s. In the 1990s, there came about a plan to basically overthrow the governments in 7-8 different Middle Eastern countries, including Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya, and on and on. Now, obviously George W. Bush got bogged down. He was supposed to take out Iran, Iraq, Syria, Libya, but he got bogged down in Iraq and Afghanistan. But that doesn't stop the establishment, the ruling elite, from continuing to press forward. They'll never stop. A 10-year plan may turn into a 100-year plan. They don't care. They'll keep working it one step at a time. Now, Donald Trump has presented a tremendous problem for them. You have to understand this is about Syria right now and Iran, because Syria has to come before Iran when you're talking about toppling these regimes. Syria, because they are the back door for Iran. You got to shut the back door. Once you've taken over Syria, it's much easier to take over Iran. You have them surrounded, basically. So this is part of the long-term plan that the globalists are trying to pursue. And Donald Trump has thrown a tremendous wrench in their spokes, because he has come out and stated that he disagrees with the policy of taking out Assad in Syria, because he believes that what may replace him is much worse. Very good point. He also hasn't got on board with backing these so-called moderate rebels that we've been backing, arming, training, and supporting. He doesn't believe they're all that moderate. So he essentially has sided with Putin. It's not that he just sided with Putin, it's just that he agrees on this particular issue in Syria, and Donald Trump has no interest in overthrowing the government in Syria and then moving on to Iran. He understands what a quagmire both of these could be, and he understands there's two separate situations that have to be dealt with differently. With Bashar al-Assad, there's probably some area there that you can work with him. with the Iranians, you never really know. The Iranians are very unpredictable. They're very difficult to deal with. But there are ways to deal with them through sanctions and various types of economic pressure. And that's probably the way that Trump will go. I don't expect to see him, launching a full-scale war on Iran. And he certainly has shown no interest in pursuing the current Syria policy. And that's where he is in trouble. And that's what this is all about. And you have to understand that, as with most things, you can almost always trace it back to money or power, meaning control. In this particular case, control of that region, control of the resources, both their banking, their energy resources, and other natural resources that they possess. So what's going on here is that there is two different gas pipeline proposals. One is the North Stream pipeline, the other is the South Stream pipeline. Now, the South Stream pipeline is the pipeline that is wanted by the United States, the Western Europeans, the Arab states, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. Now, they want to run this pipeline all the way up through going through Syria and feeding into Western Europe. This would be a tremendous benefit to those countries I just mentioned. There's billions of dollars at stake. And you must also remember that when you run a gas pipeline, if you're a Western country, you run a gas pipeline through this area of the world, you now have the reason to put military resources in there to protect that pipeline. It's now a security issue, you see. And so it's very important to the military-industrial complex, the people who build the weapons. And you also have the, the financiers, the criminal bankers. They loan the money to the government for them to buy the weapons from the defense contractors. So these are the two most powerful forces in our government, is the military-industrial complex and the security agencies, the intelligence agencies, and the finance people, the bankers. They're all one big cabal. And they stand to make a lot of money and to gain a lot of power and control in the region if they can be successful at getting the South Stream pipeline. Now, this pipeline must go through Syria. But there's another pipeline that had been proposed, and that's called the North Stream pipeline. That pipeline would go from Russia through Turkey, through Syria, and would feed Western Europe. Now, this is where the problem is. Bashar al-Assad decided to go with the North Stream pipeline. Had Bashar al-Assad signed on to the South Stream pipeline, we will be talking about what a great reformer he is, and we would have his back, and there would be no war and no overthrow of the government in Syria, because he would be doing what we tell him to do, or certainly would want him to do. But he didn't do that. He sided with the Nord Stream pipeline, with the Russians, the Iranians, and the Turks. So now that's why he has to be taken out. And Donald Trump doesn't want to go through with it. So as you can see, this is all about pipelines. It's about money. It's about control in that region. And that is the problem that has led to all this Russia bashing. It has nothing to do with Russian hacking. It has nothing to do with Russia expanding into the old Soviet Union, into Europe. It has nothing to do with Russia taking over Crimea, which they really didn't do. It has nothing to do with Russia involving themselves in the Ukraine war, which they really, they have involved themselves to some extent, but only to support the mostly Russian people who live in the eastern part of Ukraine. This is all to do with the North versus South Stream pipelines and the billions and billions of dollars and the amount of control it represents. Plus, the ruling elite, they do not tolerate people like Bashar al-Assad or Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi. They do not tolerate people like that saying no to them. No is not an option. These people were given two options. This is American foreign policy. Number one, here's what we want you to do, and you do it. Or number two, if you don't do it, we replace you. We take you out. That is how things work. And as you can see with Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and Bashar al-Assad, they're not playing ball, and therefore they have to go. And of course the Russians saw what happened in Libya and in Iraq, and they know what the plan is. They're not foolish. They're not ignorant. They know exactly what's going on. and they have interest of their own. Remember, the Russians rely heavily on their oil and gas exports into Western Europe. And if you were to take away those gas and oil exports, the economy in Russia would tank badly. It might even bring about regime change in Russia, which they also would like. So it's personally directed at Putin as well. So he is protecting his national security and economic interest, is what he is doing. And that would be his job as the president of that country. You can't blame him for that. Not saying he's a great guy, not saying I love Putin, but quite honestly, the man's doing his job. He's doing exactly what the Russian people would expect him to do, and what we would expect our president to do if we had those types of interest at stake. But keep in mind, the bottom line of this video is that what is behind all of this Russia bashing and Putin bashing and trying to connect Donald Trump is to demonize Donald Trump, so that when he comes into office and he attempts to pursue this policy of not taking down the regime in Syria and of essentially working with the Russians to run the terrorists out of there, it is to throw a roadblock in that, to make it so that they can organize a propaganda campaign against him, where they can say, hey, the Democrats, the Republicans, the intelligence agencies, they all agree. They all agree that Russia and Putin are doing all these things, and now we have Donald Trump. He wants to work with Putin. He wants to work with Russia. See, so it's a way of preventing Trump from pursuing this foreign policy in Syria that he wishes to move forward with. He doesn't want war in Syria. He doesn't want to see Assad go and be replaced by something that could be much worse. And that's really all it is for Trump. He's not interested in the billions of dollars in kickbacks or millions of dollars in kickbacks. He doesn't need their money. He isn't interested in the buildup of power in that region, because he's seen it's had no success. It's cost us a lot of money, and we've benefited nothing at all from it. So Donald Trump is pursuing a pragmatic, rational policy. He wants to focus on domestic issues and trade and taxes and things like that. He's not into the globalist plan for world domination. And that is where the problem is between Trump and the ruling elite, the global establishment. They want their damn pipeline, and both pipelines, as I mentioned, go through Syria. And Donald Trump is obviously, by supporting Assad and working with Putin in Syria, he's essentially de facto supporting the Nord Stream pipeline, is essentially what's happening. So this is all about pipelines. It's about oil and gas pipelines. It's about money. It's about weapons contracts. It's about control in the region. It's about all these things. But it has not a fucking thing in this world to do with Russian hacking, the DNC, or leaking, or any of this other stuff. And so for the ruling elite, this is what they're really focused on. And for the Democrats, it's just politics. But this is something to keep our eye on, because these people are not going to roll over. And Trump is a fairly strong-minded person. I think he's going to do everything he can not to get sucked into this cabal. But it's going to be very interesting to watch, because we're talking about a clash of the titans. You know, when you run up against, as an American president, the entire intelligence agency, the defense industry, the big corporations, and the benefit from all these types of things, you're talking about running into the most powerful people in the world. It's going to be quite something to watch this play out, to see how Trump does. Certainly there'll be a lot of security concerns for Donald Trump. I'm sure he's been made well aware of that. I don't think he's naive at all. I think he understands exactly the fight that he's taking on and the stakes. And I think he's really counting on his supporters and people who he believes, even many Democrats who don't want to see another regime change in Syria. He's counting on those people having his back. And I think that's certainly we're all going to have to do that, because this is certainly a serious situation. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of power involved, and we're dealing with the most dangerous, bloodthirsty killers in the world. And Donald Trump is just a barrier to them that's in their way. And we've already seen that these people have no problem with removing barriers. So it's going to be a very precarious situation, a very serious situation, and one that we should all pay attention to. But the bottom line, if you take anything away from this video, is what this is all about. This demonizing of Putin and Russia, trying to connect Trump to him. It's just a demonization campaign to try to limit Donald Trump's ability to pursue the foreign policy that he wants to pursue. It's all about, for the other side, it's all about billions and billions of dollars, weapons contracts, control, and things like that. So it's this is the truth. This is why this is all being done. It has nothing to do with leaks, nothing to do with hacks, nothing to do with threats from Putin or Russia or anything like that. This is all bullshit. So we all need to watch very carefully. I'll be doing that. I'll be doing regular videos on this as we move forward to keep you all informed. I've studied this issue intently. I understand it very well. I could go into many, many details and take 3 hours on a video, but I just wanted to keep it kind of short and let you know what is really going on. This entire thing is all about pipelines. It's about billions and billions of dollars and control, and that is it. All right, everybody? Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends and social media. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. I love comments. If you have anything else to add to what I said, that would be fantastic. I do read the comments, so I appreciate any comments on the videos. So you have a good day, and I'll see you soon. See you. Bye.